So we are reading 14 lessons in yogi philosophy and Oriental occultism, reading on the astral body today. The second principle of man is not nearly so well known as its physical brother, although it is closely connected with the latter and its exact counterpart in appearance. The astral body has been known to people in all ages and has been given rise to many superstitions and mysteries, owing to a lack of knowledge of its nature. It has been called the ethereal body, the fluidic body, the double, the wraith, the doppelganger, etc. It is composed of matter of a finer quality than that composing of our physical bodies, but matter nonetheless. In order to give you a clearer idea of what we mean, we will call your attention to water, which manifests in several well-known forms. Water at a certain temperature is known as ice, is a hard, solid substance. At a little higher temperature, it assumes its best known form, which we call water. At a still higher temperature, it escapes in that form of a vapor, which we call steam. Although the real steam is invisible to the human eye and becomes apparent only when it mixes with the air and its temperature is lowered a little. When it becomes vapor visible to the eye, and which vapor we call steam. The astral body is the best counterpart of the physical body and may be separated from it under certain circumstances. Ordinarily, conscious separation is a matter of considerable difficulty, but in persons of a certain degree of psychological development, the astral body may be detached and often goes on long journeys. To the clairvoyant vision, the astral body is seen looking exactly like its counterpart, the physical body, and united to it by a slender silken cord. The astral body exists sometime after death of the person whom it belongs, and under certain circumstances, it is visible to living person and is called a ghost. There are other means whereby the spirits of those who have passed on may become manifest, and the astral shell, which is sometimes seen after it has been slowed off by the soul, which has passed on, in such cases, nothing more than a corpse of finer matter than its physical counterpart. In such cases, it is possessed of no life or intelligence and is nothing more than a cloud seen in the sky bearing a resemblance to a human form. It is a shell, nothing more. The astral body of a dying person is sometimes projected by an earnest desire, and it is such times seen by friends and relatives with whom he is in sympathy. There are many cases of this on record, and the student probably is aware of occurrences of this kind. We will have more to say about the astral body and astral shells in another lesson in this course. We will have occasion to go into further detail when we reach the subject of the astral plane, and in fact, the astral body will form a part of several lessons. The astral body is invisible to the ordinary eye, but it is readily perceived by those having clairvoyant power of a certain degree. Under certain circumstances, the astral body of a living person may be seen by friends and others. The mental condition of the persons and the observer having much to do with the matter. Of course, trained and developed occultist is able to project his astral body consciously and may make it appear at will, but such powers are rare and are acquired only after a certain stage of development is reached. The adept sees the astral body rising from the physical body as the hour of death approaches. It is seen hovering around the physical body, to which it is bound by a slender thread. When the thread snaps, the person is dead, and the soul passes on, carrying with it the astral body, which in turn is discarded as the physical body has been before. It must be remembered that the astral body is merely a finer grade of matter, and that it is merely a vehicle for the soul, just as is the physical, and that both are discarded at the proper time. The astral body, like the physical, disintegrates after death of the person, and persons of a psychic nature sometimes see the dissolving fragments around cemeteries in the shape of violet light. We are merely calling attention to the different vehicles of the soul of man, his 7 principles, and we must hasten on to the next principle. We would like to speak to you of an interesting phenomenon of the ego leaving the physical body in the astral body while one is asleep. We would like to tell you just what occurs during sleep and how one may give orders to his astral self to gain certain information or to work out certain problems while he is wrapped in sleep. But that belongs to another phase of our subject, and we must pass on after merely whetting your appetite. We wish you to get these 7 principles well fixed in your mind so that you may be able to understand the terms when we use them later on. Prana, or vital force. We have said something of prana in our little book, Science of Breath, which many of you have read. As we said, which I never read, as we said in that book, prana is universal energy, but in our consideration of it, we will confine ourselves to that manifestation of prana, which we call vital force. This vital force is found in all forms of life, from the amoeba to the man, from the most elementary form of plant life to the highest form of animal life. Prana is all pervading. It is found in all things having life. And as the occult philosophy teaches that life is in all things, in every atom, the apparent lifelessness of some things being only a lesser degree of manifestation, we may understand that prana is everywhere in everything. Prana is not the ego, but is merely a form of energy used by the ego in its material manifestation. When the ego departs from the physical body in what we call death, the prana, being no longer under the control of the ego, responds only to the orders of the individual atoms or their groups, which have formed the physical body. And as the physical body disintegrates and is resolved back to its original elements, each atom takes with it sufficient prana to enable it to form new combinations. The unused prana returning to the great universal storehouse from whence it came. Prana is in all forms of matter, and yet it is not matter. It is the energy or force which animates matter. We have gone into matter of prana in our little book previously referred to, and we do not wish to take up the students' time in repeating what we said there. But before taking up the next principle, we wish to direct the students' attention to the fact that prana is the force underlying magnetic healing, much of mental hearing, absent treatment, etc. That which has been spoken of by many as human magnetism is really prana. In Science of Breath, we have given you directions for increasing the prana in your system, distributing it over the body, strengthening each part and organ, and stimulating every cell. It may be directed toward relieving pain in oneself and others by sending the affected part of a supply of prana extracted from the air. It may be projected to a distance so far as to affect other persons. The thought of the projector sends forth and colors the prana gathered for the purpose and finds lodgment in the psychic organism of the patient. Like the Marconi waves, it is invisible to the eye of man, with the exception of certain persons who have attained a high degree of clairvoyant power. It passes through intervening obstacles and seeks the person attuned to receive it. This transferring of prana on the direction of the will is the underlying principle of the thought transference, telepathy, etc. One may surround himself with an aura of prana colored with strong positive thought, which will enable him to resist the adverse thought waves of others, and which will enable him to live serene in an atmosphere of agnostic and inharmonious thought. We advise students to reread that portion of Science of Breath, which deals with the use of prana. We propose going into great detail regarding this phase of the subject during the course of these lessons, but Science of Breath gives a good fundamental idea of the nature of prana and the methods of its use. And students will do well to refresh their minds on this subject. We do not wish to weary you by this description of each of the 7 principles, and we are aware that you are impatient to enter into the more interesting phases of the subject. But it is absolutely necessary that you obtain a clear idea of these 7 principles in order that you may understand that which follows and to obviate the necessity of you being sent back to relearn the lesson which you have skipped. We had this idea in mind when we started this class in November of 1903. Instead of waiting until January of 1904, And we give you the November and December lessons as good measure, so as to be able to reach the more interesting part of the subject by January lesson. We will leave the subject of prana and will pass on to the next principle, but we trust that you will not leave this part of the next lesson until you have acquired a clear idea of prana and its qualities and uses. Study your science of breath until you understand something of prana. Let me see. I keep reading. I'll finish this chapter. I mean, not this chapter, this section. The mental principles. The Western reader who has studied the writings of some of the Western psychologists will recognize in the instinctive mind certain attributes of the so-called subjective or subconsciousness, mind spoken of so frequently by the said writers. These writers discovered in man these characteristics, as well as the certain higher phases of the mind coming from the spiritual mind. And without stopping to investigate further, they advanced a new theory that man is possessed of two minds, that is the objective and subjective, or as some have termed them, conscious and subconscious. This was all very well so far as it went, but these investigators set their conscious mind aside and bundled all the rest into their subconscious or subjective mind, ignoring the fact that they were mixing the highest and lowest qualities of mind and putting them in the same class and leaving the middle quality by itself. The subjective mind and the subconscious theories are very confusing, and the student finds grouped together the most sublime flashes of genius and the silliest nothings of the man of low development, the mind of the latter being almost altogether subjective. Those who have read up on these theories we would say that such reading will materially help them understand the three mental principles of man, if they will remember that the conscious or objective mind corresponds very nearly with the intellect principle in the yoga philosophy, and that the lowest portions of the subjective or subconscious mind are what yogis term instinctive mind principle, while the higher and sublime qualities, which the Western writers have noticed, have grouped with the lower qualities in forming their subjective mind and subconscious mind theories, is the spiritual mind principle of the yogis, with the difference that the spiritual mind has additional properties and qualities of which these Western theorists have never dreamed. As we will touch upon each of these three mental principles, you will see the points of resemblance and the points of difference between the yogi teachings and the Western theories. We wish it distinctly understood, however, that we do not desire to detract from the praise justly earned by these Western investigators. In fact, the yogis owe them a debt of gratitude for preparing the Western mind for fuller teachings. The student who has read the works of the writers referred to will find it very much easier to grasp the idea of these three mental principles in man than if you have never heard of any division in the functioning of the mind of man. Our principal reason for calling attention to the mistake of the Western dual mind theory was not to the mind of the yogi, it is painful to see, was that to the mind of the yogi, it is painful to see that which he knows to be the highest manifestation of mind, that which is the seat of inspiration and flashes of genius, that which touches the pure spirit, the spiritual mind, which is just beginning to awaken in man a development and growth, confused and confounded with, and placed in the same class with the lowest mental principle, the instinctive mind, which, while most necessary and useful to man, under the direction of his higher principle, is still which is common to the most undeveloped man, even to the lower form of the animal kingdom. Yeah, even to the plant life. We trust that the student will free his mind of preconceived ideas on this important subject and will listen to what we say before forming his final opinion. In our next lesson, we will go into detail regarding each of the three mental principles. I will stop there. Good morning, Amanda.
Good morning.
Just looking at my notes. Okay. If anyone wants to share, has questions. The next lesson is going to go more into the mental principles. So I guess tomorrow we'll dive deeper into that.
I find it interesting in myself that I have much easier time understanding or accepting prana and life force than I do the astral body. Prana to me is energy that's all around, and it's really understandable. It's really easy for me to understand how prana is taken in by the body. And I can't, not that I can direct prana, but I can understand that some people can and accept that. But the astral body, I just have to say, okay, I accept, I hear it, but you know, it has less meaning to me.
For me, with the astral body, it's like the example I gave you yesterday with the hypnotist. It might be one of those things that I might not like. I'd be like where you were until I actually experienced it. And I didn't realize it at the time, but when my sister passed away, I was 21 years old. It happened in 2004. And like shortly after that, I was sleeping and I woke up and she was in my room. And it was the most freakiest thing that's like ever happened to me. It was like that ghost form that they're talking about. And I was so scared I shooed her away. And she's never come back to me because I shoot her away. So I've definitely witnessed something like that. And I also experience it oftentimes. I don't phrase this the right way, but I like going to wakes and funerals because it was important to me how many people showed up to support me and my family when my sister passed away. It's not that I like going to them. I just want, they're very hard to go to, but they're important to go to. And so oftentimes when I'm in these rooms, you can feel the energy. I don't necessarily always like see the astral of the person that's there, but it's happened to me a few times where I've gone up to the casket, and if it's an open casket and I sit there, I've seen, and they tell you this is a real thing. Like you can see the chest, it almost looks like the person's still breathing and it freaks you out. I've seen this happen before. But like you can almost like feel that like layer on top of them, or like feel them in the room. And that might be to me more like a prana thing, like their energy's still there. And they say it's like important to help them move on, if you believe in this stuff, like to move them on to their next chapter, to help that energy, that astral body. I don't remember exactly what they say, but for me, I know how important it is, that transition to, I even did it like with Kramer. Kramer, my dog, hasn't like come, I haven't even dreamed about him or anything. So I feel like it might be a totally different experience with an animal for me. But even like while he was passing, I was like, Eric, we have to be extremely calm and peaceful. I don't want there to be any negative energy in this room, because his transition, I need to be like him to carry these emotions. So that's my experience with the astral body. It's like a cookie cutter of our body, but like in air form or something.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've heard other people say that, which is why I say, okay, I
Yeah.
accept, I listen to it, I accept that that's a thing. I just don't, I just have to go, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would, if I read that story, I'd be like, that person's crazy. And I'm crazy. It's fine. I'll take-
I don't even think people like, I don't, when people tell me things like that, I don't think it's crazy. I think it's, I believe that that's happened to you. I believe it. It's
on,
never happened to me. And so I just have to go, okay, I hear it. That's all I can do.
I think you have to be open to it too. Like I didn't know any of this yoga philosophy stuff when my sister showed up. I shooed her away. She knew I wasn't open to it. I guess she was like testing to see if I was, and I wasn't, and it's never happened again. But yeah, if like you're saying you're not open to it, you might not ever experience it. I think they're just trying to give us just like what they said yesterday, like they're not trying to prove their point. They're just giving us their information, and from there we can take whatever truth we want out of it and we can go and prove it ourselves. So I'm not trying to like prove it to you. I'm just giving my experience with it.
Sure. And I feel like maybe 10 years ago, maybe longer than that, if I had read this, I would have put it down and I wouldn't have gone further because I'd have been like, oh, this is not for me. But I'm okay reading it. I'm okay to say, okay, that's there. I'm hearing it. And then move on. You know, it's just interesting that prana, which is also something you can't see, I have a much more accepting, like, I truly believe there. I truly believe that that's there. I believe isn't the right word, but I feel that.
Yeah, I
So
feel it.
it's interesting how I have a different feeling about one and then the other. But
Yeah.
like I'm saying, I'm not discounting it. I'm not saying, you know, I'm not putting the book down and saying, oh, this isn't for me. Just like, okay.
It does get interesting as we go on. There are some chapters I love and some that I just like not for me. Not I don't hate it. Like the opposite of love isn't hate. It's just not for me. But it's important for me to understand these. I had another incident. I was texting Amanda yesterday about another white male priest or pastor that took advantage of his very powerful role. And like just after reading the Gita and this, so like it to me, reading this stuff is important because you do get these when you do these practices like meditation and all the other pranayama and everything, you do get these gifts where you can like see clearly and people can start taking advantage of that. So to me, it's important for myself to stay grounded, but also be aware of what other people are doing, which is hard because I can see myself like judging. I'm having another issue like where I'm like judge, and I don't know how. It goes, I keep going back to those 4 keys in the sutras where it's like unhappiness, happiness, virtuous, and wicked. And I'm like, stop judging the wicked and just ignore them.
Yeah, not easy.
Not easy, because I want to be judgy. And I want to point my finger in their face and say, stop acting like that.
Right. I know, but it's very hard.
Just be good people. All right. So I'm excited to dig deeper into the mental principles and read them again because I remember reading through them the first time, and it'll be a nice refresher and a good to have conversation with everybody on it so we can dig deeper into it. All right, if anyone else wants to share, go for it. Otherwise, we can set up for breath work and meditation. I'm gonna put in the chat. I'll put the Hare Krishna one in case Lauren wants it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a question that I don't know if anyone can answer in terms of the astral body. You know how, like, when you have those days like in Shavasana where you feel like you drift, like you go somewhere? That's what I was thinking about. Like, is that what we feel? Like, I mean, I don't know if Amanda has, I don't know if anyone can answer it, but that's what came up in my head.
Yeah, like that feeling of like when you're, and maybe I'm not picking up.
You know, like when you go somewhere really nice and you don't, I never want to come back when I go there. And you can feel it, but there's no like really putting it into words. Unless you experience it, you can't.
Like when you come out of your own physical body and are like looking down at yourself.
Yeah, that feeling.
Yeah, I guess
I've had that one
Travel.
long, but I've only ever had that once in Shavasana where I felt like I was looking at myself in Shavasana. It was an interesting feeling.
Like, to me, when it happens, it's an awesome feeling, and I do not want to come back.
Yeah, so Jackie, maybe you have experienced the astral body. So I don't know if I've actually experienced it or if I'm faking it till I make it. It hasn't happened recently, so I can't really remember, but I know what you're talking about. I just don't know if for me, if it's more of a mental thing where
And I'm not even saying that's it. Like, I don't know. Like, you know, like what you were reading, that's the only thing that kept coming up in my head.
Yeah.
And then
maybe I'll Google it today. I took off from work today, so maybe I can. I'm finally getting to see my best friend. I haven't seen her in 11 months, so
nice.
Maybe I will Google it quickly and see. Oh, Dominica
said that crazy book I was reading by Prabhupada about traveling to other planets. He talks about how like you can't bring your physical body there because it won't function. You know, like you can't go to a planet made of fire with this earth body because it would burn. So he talks about traveling with a different layer of yourself. So maybe he's talking about the astral body. You know, they're always, I don't know, I've heard astral projection like a million times. And you're probably projecting with this particular body, right?
Well, now that I think about it, yeah. So I was just thinking like maybe it wasn't my sister's astral body, but I think what happens is it doesn't, and I could be wrong, maybe Amanda knows more about this, but it doesn't, the physical body leaves, the astral body's there, and until the astral body is actually ready to transition, it stays. So I think about that often. Like it doesn't make sense that she wasn't physically alive anymore, but her astral body wasn't gone. But she stuck around for some reason just to like, whether her final work was with me or she went somewhere else, and then she finally, hopefully went on somewhere else. But I was thinking maybe that person still had to be alive, but it doesn't.
Well, I mean, their body's not like we're always alive. We don't die, you know.
Yeah.
It's just the body just sheds. But in the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, they talk about that, about how it lingers for something like
Linger, that's the right word,
after.
linger. Yeah. All right.
You like say mantra over them and then send them away for
Yeah. Well, I was like young and I didn't have this knowledge, so I was just freaked out.
It's freaky. It's freaky when that happened when my grandma died. Remember, like the second she died, I didn't she passed, and it was like the time that she died. I felt a presence in the room, and I was like, "Go away! You're not welcome here."
Yeah, but now I like call them and I'm like, come, and they don't come.
Oh, well, they're probably off to another life or something.
But I know they're always with me, whoever I'm calling for. But yeah, it's funny. All right, so I also put the Gayatri mantra because the last few days I've been listening to that. It's about 9 minutes, and I want to say change, like talk about money and time, but it's 9 minutes and some seconds. So I listened to it twice in a row, just if you want another tool.
Thank you.
All right, so, let's do breath work. So sit up nice and tall, or if you're laying down, just creating that straight spine. Breathing in and out through the nose, keeping eyes open or gently closed, creating that long breath in, long breath out. Breathing into the low belly. And then bring your right hand over to the face. Close the right nostril with the thumb. Inhale through the left. Close left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close right. Exhale left. Inhale left. Close left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close right. Exhale left. Inhale left. Close left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close right. Exhale left. Inhale left. Close left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close right. Exhale left. You can continue on with your alternate nostril breathing. You can release your palms. I'm going to take a few rounds of bumblebee breath. So you close your ears with your thumbs and place your peace fingers over your eyes. You inhale and exhale with the lips sealed. And as you exhale, you create a humming sound at the back of the throat. It sound like a bumblebee. You'll feel vibrations inside. You just exhale for as long as you can and start your new inhale. You don't have to wait for me. You can do it 3 to 5 times. Inhaling. If you haven't already, I'm going to set the timer. You can join us in your meditation. Bringing hands to heart center. Namaste. Have a beautiful day, everybody.